face, quite honestly, I thought I was dead. This wasn't just some armed intruder that happened to walk into my office at the church and decide to kill me. It was somebody that I was attempting to let go. I found out how passionate he was about wanting to stay. I'm not sure the way he went about it worked out too well for him. I wouldn't say that I've ever been an activist. I wouldn't say that, honestly, that I've ever attended any kind of a rally. I've always grew up around guns. 4.5 years ago, I got my concealed weapons permit. And that particular day, I happened to have it on me. But when someone puts a .45 caliber pistol a foot from your face and pulls the trigger, I could have had a machine gun on me and it wouldn't have helped. I happened to have 2 ladies in my office that day that was there with me. One was my daughter. My daughter is our executive pastor of the church. My other one was my administrator, and they were there just as witnesses. And when he pulled that gun out and fired it, we were screaming, we were yelling. I was afraid of dying that day. I thought, well, this is how it's going to end. And he fired that shot. Quite honestly, my first impression was to look to see where I was bleeding. But he missed the shot. How do you miss a shot 1 foot away from my face? My daughter jumped into action and jumped him. I'm just telling you, don't mess with my daughter. She grabbed his arm. He fired a second shot into the sidewall that gave me time to get out from behind the desk. My administrator can't weigh 100 pounds soaking wet. She jumped him. And together we put him in a corner. My daughter thought, she doesn't even remember this, she thought I was dead. In fact, if you Google my name and then put 911 after it, you will hear the 911 call, a 3-minute call, 3 minutes of a 9-minute call. Quite honestly, the call probably messed me up more than the shooting. When you hear your daughter explaining to the 911 operator that her father is dead, that he's been shot, he's bleeding to death, send help now, quick. We struggled a little bit. The women ran out of the room. The next thing I know, I'm in the center of a larger office. Outside of my small office, I'm in the floor. And it's at that point I remember I'm carrying. This wasn't my first go-to place. It sounds kind of bad that I shoot somebody that I didn't want to hurt. I could have done many things, I guess, in the few seconds that I had, but I chose not to. We have a preschool, we have staff. My wife, I'd have to say, I thought that she was being paranoid. I told her she was paranoid. But I understand that God speaks to me quite often. It's in the voice of my wife. And she wanted to call the police. She wanted to call the church security. I wouldn't let her. And if I'd have found out that she had emptied the office out, I'd have been even more mad. But she did all that unknowns to me. She didn't call the police, but emptied the office out. And when I'm sitting there on the floor, I knew nobody's in this office. And I pulled my pistol, and I had a 9mm Springfield XDS, and I fired a shot. I don't even remember that shot. It missed him, went in the far wall. I fired a second shot, hit him 1 inch from his heart. He's about 20 feet away from me. He turned sideways to run out. I fired a third shot, hit him in the side. Let me tell you, this did not slow him down. He kept running. And he ran down the steps, he ran out the door, and then my job was to get everything secure. He actually came back around the church and entered into our preschool. But he dropped right at the door. It wasn't seconds. The police came, and they came in like the SWAT team. Let me tell you, our county wasn't the ones that just stand outside and get on a loudspeaker and say, "Come out with your hands up." They came in, and they, for the second time that day, I looked down the barrels of guns. My daughter had called in, the pastor's been shot, possibly dead. They came in, the bad guy's shot, the pastor's standing in the doorway. They think I'm the bad guy. And they didn't buy right away that I was the pastor, so I'm in handcuffs and I'm on the sidewalk. I can't tell you what kind of a day that was. But sooner or later they came back and they said, "You're a hero. You saved so many lives today." And I stand before you and I say, I don't feel like a hero. I feel like that I was the shepherd of our flock. In that room, I admit I was afraid of dying, but when I was laying in the floor on my rear end and I pulled the pistol after being in a fight for my life, my adrenaline was going crazy. I couldn't hardly breathe. I was fully prepared to die. To protect children, to protect my daughter and my staff. Over the past few years, I've received a lot of criticism. I'm actually called the pistol-packing hillbilly pastor. And I wear that proudly. There's several articles that's talking about the hillbilly pistol-packing pastor. But if I had it to do over, let me just say something to you today that I would do the exact same thing all over again. There's times that I thought something was wrong with me because I don't feel guilty about what I did. I don't necessarily feel good about what I did. I don't feel anything. I did what I had to do to protect the people that work for me and the people that have put their trust in me. Do you know that there's as many people shot in churches as there are in the public school system? And so many times as a pastor, we fail to realize the danger that we place our people in when we don't provide proper security. And even though I receive criticism, and even though I mean, why does a pastor carry a gun? Why does he have to shoot somebody? I told one parent of one of the children who asked me that question, I said, well, let's put it another way. We called you and you came to pick up your 4-year-old little girl and she is fine. Now let's paint another picture. You could have came. We could have called you to come and identify the body of your 4-year-old girl. And then you find out that the pastor was there. The pastor was carrying a gun. The pastor could have stopped this guy. But he didn't because he was afraid of people like you that's going to criticize him if he exercises his Second Amendment right and exercises the right to protect not only himself but his staff as well. And I said, the way I see it, I don't really care what you think.
Yes, sir.
Because your 4-year-old girl is alive, my daughter is alive, my staff is alive, and all of the children are alive, and I did what I had to do. all of a sudden that makes you quite more aware when you hear people wanting to take away your right to carry a gun. In fact, most of the pastors, it seems in our organization, since that event, are now carrying guns. I went to one pastor convention, and they had mentioned the shooting. Everybody was coming up to me. It was almost like take a number. And every single pastor was carrying, except me. I'm like, I should have been the one carrying. I'm just glad that I can stand here today and I don't have any holes in my head that doesn't belong there. My daughter, my administrator, everybody thought that I was shot. Quite honestly, I thought I was shot. So that has thrust me into the forefront of some of the debates and some of the things that are going on here today. And I just want to say thank you to John for allowing me to come and just share my testimony. You know, some people said, well, why didn't you trust God? I said, are you kidding me? I said, I did trust God. This guy put a gun in my face and pulled the trigger. And I'm still here standing before you. I close with this. God did his part, and then I did my part. God bless you. God bless America.